We're here with Dr. Reggie Melrose, and you wrote your book, Why Students Underachieve, and What Parents and Educators Can Do About It. Why do students underachieve?
Well, when educators have to look at what could be impairing a child or really causing a child to not benefit from their educational program, they look at two different factors. Environmental factors: is there something outside of the child, something that the child is experiencing or not experiencing, that is leading to this underachievement? Or the second factor is there something innate to the child, something inside of the child, like a disability, a disorder, a chronic illness, something that is, of course, then impairing their ability to benefit. So when we look at those two areas, right, we can rule out environment in many cases. If a child is coming to school every day, if they're being exposed to rich academic materials, those are the environmental kinds of influences. We need to make sure children are in school benefiting. If it's something innate, then we have to start looking at, is there an actual disability? Is there something wrong with the child? Do they have a different way of thinking, of learning? Is there something inside the brain that if we looked at that, would that help explain why students underachieve? The problem with looking at the child and try inside, right? Now we're not worried about the environmental, we're looking at what is innate to the child that could be impairing their ability. We start to fall into, we want the child to fit into a number of boxes that we have. A lot of educators now, they know about things like ADHD. Could it be that? Could it be a learning disability? Could it be a pervasive developmental disorder? What is going on inside the child that is causing this underachievement? The problem is that a lot of children don't fit neatly into any of those boxes, and often they're misdiagnosed and misunderstood as having one of those conditions, when in fact the basic fundamental problem is that they can't self-regulate their own learning and behavior. Self-regulation, we now know, is the single most important capacity for all of learning and adaptive behavior to be possible. So our children need to be able to self-regulate. What does that mean? They need to modulate. They need to be able to modulate their arousal levels. So if they're too aroused, then they're not benefiting, right? They can't focus, they can't attend to what's going on, and so their memory is impaired because they're all over the place. If they're under-aroused, then, they're bored, who cares, what difference does it make, right? They don't seem to care or be investing in their education. They're under-aroused. What we need is to help kids get into this optimum zone of arousal, where self-regulation is possible, where they're able to modulate their arousal. So yes, they get excited, but it's never too excited that it actually impairs their ability to benefit from their instruction, right? So we want them to not be over-aroused, not be under-aroused, but to get into this healthy zone. So how do we do that? We do that with resources, rich, important resources. And there are very specific ones that help kids get into the zone of optimum arousal, where healthy self-regulation of their nervous system and their arousal levels is possible. So some of the most important ones are safety. Children need to feel like they're safe and secure. They need to feel like they're competent at something, that they're good at something, that they have value and they have a contribution to make. They also need to feel like they're part of something, a community, right? I belong here. This is where I belong. This is where I'm loved and I'm cared for. This is where people want to help me. This is where people stand up for me. This is where we have zero tolerance for things like bullying and racism, right? And that all leads to safety, a sense of community, safety, and what can I contribute to this classroom and this school that makes me feel like I'm valuable.
Okay, Dr. Reggie, that's great. Now, where can people find your book?
Oh, my book, Why Students Underachieve, can be found at my website, drmelrose.com. It can be found at the publishers, romanaeducation.com. It can be found at amazon.com, anywhere where books are sold on the internet. You can find it, and it's full of activities and tools and resources that once you give this gift to your child, they will have the ability to self-regulate their learning and their behavior and succeed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.